I'd like to call the 5:15 PM time certain public hearing of August 1st to adopt the 2023-24 tentative millage rate and budget meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We are not doing a moment of silence, so we can sit down. Here. Going on to roll call.
Christy Chong, present.
Will Furry, present.
Sally Hunt.
Colleen Conklin, present.
Cheryl Massaro.
LaShaka Moore.
Okay, we're going on to item 2, summary of the tentative millage rate and budget presentation. I would ask Ms. Womack, summary 201, to review with us.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, and Superintendent Moore. This is the trim or truth in millage process that allows the taxpayers to come and see our presentation and for us to explain the changes in our millage and our budget, and it is part of the local trim process that is used to levy property taxes in our county. This meeting is required by Florida statutes. There are several items that are required to be read regarding the trim. We'll get to the trim at the second half of the meeting. The first half, we're 201 and 202, we're just going to kind of combine and do together. So if we can pull up the attachment on 202, we'll go ahead and get started. This is a very similar presentation that we do every year for the tentative trim. For the 23-24 budget presentation, I will go through the documents that are in this PDF. I just want to note that the items related to the budget, we're not going to go into detail. We just had a detailed budget meeting on Monday, July 24th at 1 p.m. That video is available for the public to watch on our district website. So if we can go to page 2, this is the general fund budget. I'll just very quickly touch on some key things here. Total federal, state, and local revenue is just over $130 million. Our total transfers from capital fund is estimated at $6.3 million. Our total expenditures is $136.7 million, which leaves us with just $312,991 to add to our fund balance for 23-24 fiscal year. The next page, page 3, this is a pie chart of all of our general fund costs. If you look, obviously the vast majority is salary and benefits. That's in the blue area, and it makes up 83% of our budget for next year. The next largest is the purple area at 11%. This is what's called purchase services, and the larger items in here are the property insurance, contracted services for PSCs or any contracts that we have, such as lobbyists, items like that. Contracts we use to contract out for our ESE, various positions that we can't fill, nurses, things like that. It's also for software, rentals, water and sewer, and one of the biggest ones is our FEFP distributions to the charter school. Page 4, this is our special revenue funds. As you can see, the first column is food service. Second column is our federal grants. As I mentioned at the last meeting, these are our standard grants that we have always received: IDEA, Title I, Title IV, Title IX, and several other smaller ones. And column 3 is our federal stabilization grants. These are our ESSER, CARES, and our ARP grants. They are set to run out or to expire in 24-25 fiscal year, at the first half of that fiscal year. Next page. These are our debt service funds, the second column being our largest debt, which is our COPS. Next page, page 6. These are our capital project funds. Column 3 and 4 are our largest funds. The 1.5 millage generated by the 1.50 millage of our total millage. And the other capital projects column, the fourth column, this is our half-cent sales tax and our impact fees. If you scroll to the next page, page 7, this is a summary of everything we're spending our 1.5 mils on in the 23-24 year. The first half is the large projects. This is an exact replica of what you saw on the 5-year capital outlay plan that was presented by Mr. Bush. Under the first half, these are the other items that come out of our 1.5 mil every year. You can see the very last line shows what we're going to be using from fund balance to get all these projects done. The bulk of this is the FPC parking lot. We're spending more money on capital this year to get these projects done. So that is the bulk of what will be coming out of that 4.4 million. The other is our transfers are increasing, mainly due to the fact that we can use it for salaries and benefits of bus drivers. I just want to make a note that we will be finishing the year with about 19 million in our 1.5 mil. We have worked really hard to build that up since the pandemic. So we do have the reserves to do that extra big project, the $3 million. And the 19 million that we're going to end with fund balance is a 2.5 increase from last fiscal year. Page 8, this is our permanent fund. The only transaction here is one scholarship that is paid every year. Page 9 is our self-insurance, and as you can see, we plan to end with a healthy fund balance of 7.1 million. Page 10, student enrollment over the past several years. Our FTE projection for 23-24 that we did back in February is 14,161. Keep in mind that that does include our charter schools as well as scholarships, and included in that number is 798 scholarships of students that will be taking vouchers. The next page is page 11. This is our history of property tax assessment. As you can see in the bottom column, the bottom of column 1, our total assessment increased 1.7 billion from last year, which is a 10.9% increase. As you can see, though, our millage continued to go down this year as well. If you go to the next sheet, the next page, page 12, this is a chart that we show every year. It's a history of our millage. As you can see, in 95-96, that's when our millage peaked at 7.063. As you can see, it has trended downwards since then, and we are once again at our lowest millage of 3.155. Just to make a note, we are the only taxing authority that cannot set our own millage. As that continues to go down, we, as Mr. Furry mentioned at the last meeting, we do not become flush with cash just because our property values have gone up. Any questions on this presentation before I talk a little bit more about the trim?
Just for the public, just to make note again, our millage rate for school property taxes is at the lowest rate ever,
Yes.
5.4.
Combined, yes. That's the 3.155 of RLE, 0.748 of the discretionary that goes to our operating fund, and 1.5, which is our capital. If you could just stay on this slide for me. With regard to the millage, there are just several items that are required to be read. So let me get through that now. The current year total proposed millage rate to be levied is more than the rollback rate by 3.22%. This year's state law, RLE, is 3.155 mils. Discretionary operating is 0.748 mils, and the local capital improvement is 1.5 mils, for a combined total millage of 5.403, which again, as Dr. Conklin mentioned, this is our lowest millage in well over 25 years. Also required by Florida statutes is a comparison to the prior year. The RLE of 3.155 mils is lower than prior year's rate of 3.298. The tax revenues generated from this year's RLE is $52,833,556, as compared to last year's total of $49,797,001, or an increase of local tax revenues of $3,036,555. This year's capital outlay millage of 1.50 mils is the same as last year's millage rate. The local capital tax revenues generated from this year's millage is $25,118,965, as compared to last year's total of $22,648,727, or an increase of local capital tax revenues of $2,470,238. This year's discretionary operating of 0.748 mils is the same as last year's millage rate. The local tax revenues generated from this year's discretionary operating millage is $12,525,990, as compared to last year's total of $11,294,165, or an increase of $1,231,825. In summary, the millage rate reduction from 5.546 to 5.403 is a reduction in total millage of 0.143 mils. The tentative millage rate of 5.403, again, is the lowest millage in over 25 years. Thank you for your patience. That's a lot of numbers to get through.
Hey, Patty.
yes.
I'm sorry. Before we move on, can we just take a second to talk about what we're talking about? For millage, is this there's a bucket of property taxes, and this is determining what of that we get, and
Sure.
the sheriff's office might get a certain percentage, and we get a certain percentage.
So if you can scroll back to the previous slide, the very bottom, that's $16,745,000 or $745 million. That is the amount, that's the total value that's used in the calculations to figure out how much our millage does raise in revenues for us. So there is a separate form that's done with the property appraiser's office where they submit a form, and we have to put our millage on. It calculates these amounts, and that's all part of the trim calculation. So if you can go to page 12, please. So the 3.155, that first column, that is what makes up, when you multiply that millage, it's like 0.003155. When you multiply that by our property value, that is what calculates to our local property tax revenue for our general fund.
So, because I'm just hearing the two of you kind of echoing this, it's the lowest. So I'm just trying to, in layman's terms, does this mean that going from a 7% in 95, that more value was placed on education, more funds went to education, and now we're cut in over half, suggesting that I just want to talk about what we're talking about, right? Because it's this is so low, this is so low. What does that mean if I'm hearing you? Is it that is it state legislators who are not giving as much as they used to? Is it local who are not giving as much as they used to in percentage to this education?
Our whole millage is set by the state, and very good questions. This took me years to figure out. Our millage is set by the state. Just because it goes down, it doesn't necessarily, I wouldn't say that someone's placing more priority on education or not. It's, when we talk about it's the lowest ever, the point being driven home there is our property values are going up. We don't benefit from it because the millage that is set by the state continues to go down. Yes.
I was just to add a little bit more. In the state of Florida, one of the things that's, I think, very confusing, because we have a lot of folks that move here from up north, and in those municipalities, school boards typically set that millage rate. In the state of Florida, Florida has one of the most equalizing funding formulas in the country. So that means that the state, we don't, like we were talking about this morning, Will, about how do we, because we're looking at a budget shortfall, right? So how do we look at generating revenue? Most municipalities or governing bodies could look at adding an additional millage. School districts and school boards in the state of Florida don't have that ability to do that in regards to required local effort. That's set by the state. That those dollars, when I say it's an equalizing formula, everybody collects every district collects their tax dollars, basically sends it, if you think of it, to one pot in Tallahassee, and then Tallahassee redistributes it back out to the various districts on a per student base student allocation, if you will. So you have some districts that get back more than $1 that they send up, right? Very poor, I'm trying to think of like a district that would get back a bit more than $1. We used to get back 95 cents on the dollar. So it's an equalizing formula, and all of these different pots of money also pay for different things. So like the capital outlay, we used to be able to levy 2 mills. They dropped that back, if you look at the chart that Patty's showing you, in 08, 09, when we were going through just about the worst time ever, they dropped back a 0.25 out of the millage, and eventually they ended up taking 0.5 of the millage back. But that is for capital outlay only. But at the same time, they were transferring PICO dollars over that we used to get over to charter schools. So there's a lot of like moving parts, but the bottom line is we don't get to set a lot of those rates. I mean, I think you can put additional millage on the ballot, like for example, the half penny. You can also put an additional point
0.25, I believe.
right? You could put it out on a referendum. It used to be that you could do a supermajority vote, but they've done away with that. So you'd have to put that out to the community for a vote. But your revenue that you're generating from tax dollars as a school board, our control is, it's basically dictated to us what we're going to levy. So even though our property values have gone up, like Patty was mentioning, the district doesn't recoup the benefit of those dollars.
So as
I don't know if that made any sense.
Thank you, Dr. Conklin. That was a good explanation. I hope that helped. As our property tax have an inverse relationship to the state revenue. So as our values go up, or as our property tax revenue goes up, which it is, our state funding goes down. So a perfect example of this is from the first calc to the second calc, we lost $512,000. I know I talked to a few of you about this. When I looked into it, or when I called DOE, because I didn't really understand, we don't normally lose money in the second calc, only the millage rate changes. So when I looked into it, what happened is our original property tax that was sent up to the state, when they got to the second calc and they did the millage, our value had gone down like $500 million, whereas the state as a whole went up. So if you look at the numbers between the first calc and the second calc, even though my property tax revenue went down, the state went up. So several numbers change as an equalizer, but we were still short $512,000 because of when they reallocate to all the school districts, our property value went down, so that's how much we lost.
Yeah, I just, if I'm a member of the public, like I've tuned out, and this is why I think people are so disengaged with government and politics, because you're talking PICO and you're talking, and like, I'm a member of school board.
Yeah,
and
I think the bottom line is what you want to look at, right? If you're a taxpayer, you're going to just look at what the total millage is. So what you care about is, which is why I think you've heard Patty and I emphasize it, it's the lowest millage rate that the district has collected in well over 20, 25 years, right? As a taxpayer, you're looking at that. What is the total millage you're levying on my school property taxes? Because let me tell you something, if that number was going up, people would be in this room.
Yeah.
Could be packed.
So the members of the public who are paying property taxes, when they got their notice in the mail, that's what they're looking at. And if that number goes up, people are not happy about it. Like if you look historically, you'll see in 09, 010, it slightly went up for like 2 years.
So, I mean, as you guys keep saying, I want to point out it's the lowest. It's the lowest. Are we saying yay? Yay, Flagler County taxpayers? Or are we saying boo, state of Florida for not supporting? I guess you guys, I'm just trying to figure out, that's why I say like, let's talk about what we're talking about. Because Sally Public, I don't know what we're talking about right now. So when you say 5 times, this is the lowest it's been. I don't like in a society where we want to either cheer or boo. I don't know what I'm doing right now. Like, is that bad for us? Like, good for taxpayers because they're not paying
It's not
as
great
much?
for us, let's say, right? Because the state sets this and we don't really have much control over that. But if you're a taxpayer in this county, you're going to be pretty happy about that.
So, correct. So you have cheaper taxes, but your schools are not getting potentially funded appropriately.
I guess it's all perspective. You would have some members of the public that would say, no, we are funded appropriately. You'd have others that would say, we're not, and that's at the discretion of the state because they set the RLE, the required local effort. They set the tax rate.
And it's all.
We don't
it's
set the
all-
tax rate.
It's all mixed up with the state funding.
Awesome. I will check out a master class on millage. Thank you.
Any other questions on this trim and budget presentation? There is a final budget meeting set for Tuesday, September 5th at 5:15 p.m. That the similar documents will be gone over for the final meeting. Ms. Hunt, I'll be happy to meet with you one-on-one just to go into a deeper dive on this, or any board member.
With all the time you currently have. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if there are no more questions, then I have to, I'm going to recess to a public hearing at this time. That's 3:01. Do we have any public that would like to speak? Looking around, I don't see any general public here. All right, so we'll go to 3:02, the resolution for the 23-24-01 for the tentative millage rate to be read by myself. Can somebody,
Here, you want to see it?
well, I can put it on mine. I just have to pull it up. And here we go. Okay, we've got it now. All right, this is resolution number 23-24-01. Whereas the School Board of Flagler County, Florida did pursuant to Chapters 200 and 1011 Florida statutes, approve tentative millage rates for the fiscal year July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. And whereas at the public hearing and in full compliance with Chapter 200 Florida statutes, the Flagler County School Board adopted this tentative millage rate for fiscal year 2023 through 2024 in the amounts of required local effort, including prior period funding adjustments, 3.1550 is the tentative millage levy. The proposed amount to be raised is $52,833,556. Capital outlay, tentative millage levy, 1.5000, and the proposed amount to be raised is $25,118,965. Discretionary operating, 0.7480 is the millage levy. Proposed amount to be raised is $12,525,990. Discretionary capital improvement is 0. Additional voted millage is 0, and debt is 0. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Flagler County School Board adopt each tentative millage rate for the fiscal year July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 on August 1st, 2023 by a separate vote prior to adopting the tentative budget.
Need a motion?
I need a motion
Move approval?
and a second.
Second.
I have a motion from Dr. Conklin and a second from Ms. Chung to approve this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Now we're going to 303, resolution, the 23-2402 for the tentative budget to be read by myself. Resolution number 23-2402, a resolution of the Flagler County School Board adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2023 to 2024. Whereas the School Board of Flagler County, Florida did, pursuant to Chapter 200 and 1011 Florida statutes, approve tentative millage rates and tentative budget for the fiscal year July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. And whereas the Flagler County School Board set forth the appropriations and revenue estimates for the budget for the fiscal year of 2023 to 2024. And whereas at the public hearing and in full compliance with Chapter 200 Florida statutes, the Flagler County School Board adopted the tentative millage rates and the budget in the amount of $324,948,643 for the fiscal year of 2023-2024. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the attached budget of the Flagler County School Board, including the millage rates as set forth therein, is hereby adopted by the School Board of Flagler County as a tentative budget for the categories indicated for the fiscal year July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024. I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Chung, a second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Chung and a second by Mr. Fury. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? It passes unanimously. We are now item 4 on the agenda, which is public comment. There is no public, so I would assume there'll be no public comment. Board member comments. Is there any board member comments? Seeing none,
Thank you, Patty.
I'm going to close the public hearing at this time. I'm now going to reconvene the public session. We are on item 7. 701, action, request board approval for the resolution of 23-2401 to adopt the 2023-24 tentative millage rate. I need a motion.
Motion to approve?
Mr. Ferry, a second.
I'll second.
Ms. Hunt. We have a motion by Mr. Ferry and a second by Ms. Hunt to approve the resolution of the 23-2401 and adopt the 23-24 tentative millage rate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. 702, action. Request board approval of resolution 23-24-02 to adopt the 23-24 tentative budget. I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Hunt, a second.
Second.
Ms. Chung. We have a motion by Ms. Hunt and a second by Ms. Chung to approve the resolution 23-2402 to adopt the 23-24 tentative budget. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? It passes unanimously. We are on discussion. Any citizen comments? Seeing none, board member comments. Seeing none, superintendent comments.
We're going to have a great day tomorrow as we welcome back our teachers for the 23-24 school year.
And with that, I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody.